My name is Lena, and I am a 32-year-old woman living in the heart of Springfield, Missouri. To understand why I did what I did, you have to understand the life I had built for myself before everything came crashing down. For a long time, I felt like I was finally winning at the game of life. I had a solid job working in logistics for a large shipping company, and I was making the best money I had ever seen. I was independent, I had a beautiful apartment on the edge of town, and I owned a metallic blue 2019 Toyota Camry that I had paid for with my own hard-earned savings. That car was my pride and joy because it represented my freedom and my ability to take care of myself. Then I met Jason. At first, Jason was everything I thought I wanted. He was 34 years old, charming, and seemed to have a wild streak that complemented my more organized nature. We were together for 4 years, and in the beginning, it was like a movie. We traveled to the Ozarks, we spent late nights talking about the future, and I truly believed he was my partner for life. However, life has a way of catching up with you when you have mistakes in your past. A few years before I met Jason, I had some run-ins with the law that resulted in felony probation. I was doing well, but I missed a few meetings with my probation officer because of work, and those missed meetings turned into warrants. I was terrified of going back to the system, so I started living like a ghost. I knew the local police department had my name and my vehicle description on their radar. Whenever I needed to get around the more heavily patrolled areas of Springfield, I would have Jason drive his old beat-up truck while I hid in the trunk. It sounds crazy now, but at the time, it felt like a necessary survival tactic. I would climb into that dark, cramped space, feeling the vibration of the road beneath me, just so I could get to work or go to the grocery store without being hauled off to jail. I was running from the inevitable, and deep down, I knew it. One afternoon, the sun was beating down on the asphalt as Jason picked me up from my shift. We decided to take a route through a neighborhood where the police were known to be active. I climbed into the trunk, tucked my purse under my head, and felt the lid click shut. I listened to the muffled sound of the radio and the hum of the tires. Suddenly, the car swerved and came to a jerky stop. My heart hammered against my ribs. Through the thin metal of the trunk, I heard the distinctive chirp of a police siren. I held my breath, hoping it was just a routine traffic stop. I heard muffled voices and the heavy footsteps of an officer approaching the vehicle. From what I learned later, an officer had been standing outside his patrol car, talking to a civilian when he saw Jason drive by. Something about the way Jason was looking in the rearview mirror triggered the officer's instincts. He ran back to his car, pulled Jason over within seconds, and immediately started asking questions about where I was. They didn't even waste time with a speeding ticket. They asked Jason to step out, and then they walked to the back of the car. When the trunk popped open, the bright Missouri sunlight blinded me. I looked up to see two police officers staring down at me with looks of grim satisfaction. I was arrested on the spot for my multiple felony probation violations. Since it was my third or fourth time failing to report, the judge did not show any mercy. I was sentenced to 6 months in a community-based corrections facility. This place was not quite a prison, but it certainly was not home. It was a secure building where we had to follow strict rules, perform labor, and attend classes. Almost as soon as the heavy doors locked behind me, I felt the shift in my relationship with Jason. In the first week, he answered my calls and told me he loved me. By the second week, the calls went to voicemail. By the third week, he had missed our scheduled visitation without a word of explanation. I spent many restless nights tossing and turning on a thin mattress, staring at the concrete ceiling and feeling my heart break into a million pieces. I realized that Jason was moving on while I was stuck behind bars. I made a difficult choice to stop calling him. I refused to beg for the attention of a man who would abandon me in my darkest hour. I accepted that our 4-year relationship was over, and while it hurt like a physical wound, I told myself I could handle it. I wasn't a monster or a psychopath. I knew that being with someone in the legal system is hard, and he had the right to want a different life. What I could not accept, however, was what happened to my property. As my release date approached, I was filled with anxiety about my car. That metallic blue Toyota Camry was the only thing I had left to my name. It was my ticket to getting my job back and rebuilding my life. I managed to convince my counselor at the facility, a kind woman named Mrs. Gable, to do me a huge favor. She had to drive past my old neighborhood for a meeting, and I begged her to see if my car was still parked in the driveway of the house Jason and I had shared. The next morning, she came into my unit and smiled. She told me she saw the car sitting right where I said it would be, looking clean and untouched. I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. I was going to be okay. I was released on a Tuesday morning with $50 in my pocket and a bus pass. I spent the first 48 hours staying at a temporary sober living house, getting my paperwork in order and breathing in the fresh air. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I waited until Thursday to contact Jason. I sent him a polite text message on his iPhone, seeing the blue bubble signify it was delivered. I told him I was out and that I wanted to come by and pick up my car. I told him I didn't want any drama and that I knew he had a new girlfriend. I just wanted my keys. He didn't reply. I waited an hour and called. No answer. I waited another hour and texted again. I could see he was active on social media, but he was completely ignoring me. I didn't want to show up unannounced because I didn't want to give him a reason to call the police on me while I was on fresh parole. I spent 2 days trying to reach him in a civilized manner. Finally, on the 7th call in a row, he picked up. His voice was cold and dismissive. I asked him very calmly when I could come get my car. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, in a voice that sounded like he had practiced the lie 100 times, he said, "Oh, what are you talking about? I thought you already came and got it. It has been gone from the driveway for weeks. I am pretty sure someone stole it or you had a friend pick it up." I felt the blood drain from my face and my hands started to shake. I knew he was lying. Mrs. Gable had seen the car just a week ago. My car had sat there for 6 months while I was incarcerated, and the very moment I was free to claim it, Jason had made it disappear. He had likely sold it for parts or traded it for something else, thinking I would be too weak or too scared of the law to do anything about it. I hung up the phone without saying another word. I was not just heartbroken anymore, I was filled with a cold, sharp rage. I reached out to Jason's sister, Sarah, whom I had always been on good terms with. I explained the situation and asked her if she knew where my car was. Sarah tried to talk to Jason, but she called me back an hour later sounding frustrated. She said Jason was refusing to talk about it and was acting incredibly defensive. That was the confirmation I needed. He had stolen my future, and he thought he could get away with it because I was a convicted felon. For the next 3 days, I didn't cry. I sat in the common room of the sober living house and planned. I knew Jason's habits. He was always looking for quick ways to make extra money because he had a serious problem with hard drugs. He used to do side jobs like cleaning houses or doing landscaping, and he always advertised his services on Facebook Marketplace. I decided to use his greed against him. I created a fake Facebook profile under the name Alina Vance. I spent hours making it look real. I found pictures of a middle-aged woman from a different state, pictures of a nice white truck, and pictures of her supposed husband and grandchildren. I joined local Springfield groups and posted a few comments to make the account look active. Then, I messaged Jason from the Alina account. I told him I had just moved into a large house near the downtown area and needed a deep cleaning service before my furniture arrived. I offered him double his usual rate because I claimed I was in a hurry. Predictably, Jason took the bait within minutes. He was greedy, and he didn't recognize the writing style. We messaged back and forth about prices and times. To make it even more convincing, I had one of my roommates at the sober living house, a guy with a deep, professional-sounding voice, record a voice message for me. I wrote a script for him to read, pretending to be Alina's husband, Arthur, confirming the address and the time. When Jason heard that voice message, he was completely hooked. He had no idea he was walking into a trap. I gave him an address that was less than a football field away from the Springfield Police Department headquarters. This area is known for having a zero-tolerance policy for any kind of suspicious activity, and the county court system there is famously strict. I told him to meet me there at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I chose a house that I knew was currently vacant and for sale. On the day of the sting, I walked down to the area and hid behind a large brick building where I had a clear view of the street. I saw Jason pull up in a car I didn't recognize, likely the one he bought with the money from selling my Camry. He messaged me saying he was there. I told him through the Alina account that I was just 5 minutes away and asked him to wait in the driver's seat. I knew Jason wouldn't be able to resist doing a little bit of drugs while he waited. He was an addict, and the stress of a big job always made him reach for his kit. While he sat there in his idling car, thinking he was about to make a few $100, I pulled out my phone and called the local police department. I didn't call 911. I called the direct dispatch line for the downtown station. I put on my best concerned mother voice. I told the dispatcher that my name was Mary and that I was a resident of the neighborhood. I told her that I had just walked past a vehicle with my 2 young children and that I was horrified by what I saw. I gave her the exact make, model, and license plate of Jason's car. I told her that there was a man slumped over in the driver's seat who appeared to be using needles and tin foil to ingest hard drugs. I made sure to sound shaken and upset, telling her that my children were crying because they didn't understand why the man looked so sick. I told her I was worried about the toxicity he was bringing into our community and that I didn't feel safe with him parked near my home. Because the police station was literally right around the corner, 3 patrol cars arrived in less than 90 seconds. I watched from my hiding spot as the officers swarmed the vehicle. They didn't even give him a chance to hide his things. They pulled him out of the car, and Jason, being the arrogant man he is, began to resist. He started screaming about his rights and trying to pull away from the officers. That was his biggest mistake. The police took him to the ground, handcuffed him, and began a thorough search of the car. They found exactly what I knew they would find: a significant amount of illegal substances, needles, and other drug paraphernalia. They charged him with felony drug possession, possession of drug paraphernalia, and resisting arrest. Because he was already on a thin leash with his own past issues, they didn't just give him a ticket. They hauled him off to the county jail and called a tow truck for his car. Here is the best part of the story. Jason didn't have any money left because he had spent everything he made from my car on his addiction. When he was eventually released on bail a few days later, he couldn't afford to get his car out of the impound lot. The fees were racking up at over $50 a day, and he had no way to pay them. The car ended up being sold at a police auction, leaving him with absolutely nothing. He lost his transportation, he had new felony charges over his head, and he was right back where he started. I never did get my metallic blue Toyota Camry back. As I found out later, he had sold it to a shady scrapyard for a fraction of its value, but seeing him lose everything felt like a fair trade. I realized that revenge is not always about getting back what you lost. Sometimes it is about making sure the person who hurt you understands that there are consequences for their actions. Today, I am back on my feet. I have a new job and I am saving up for a new car, one that Jason will never even see. I learned a hard lesson about trust and about the kind of people I allow into my life. I am no longer hiding in trunks or running from my past. I faced my time, I did my sentence, and I came out stronger. Jason, on the other hand, is still caught in the cycle he created for himself. Sometimes I think about that Friday afternoon when the sun was shining on the police cars, and I can't help but smile. He thought I was an easy target because I was down, but he forgot that a woman who has survived the system knows exactly how to use it. The role reversal was complete. He was the one in handcuffs, and I was the one walking away free. It is a long road to rebuilding a life from scratch, but every step I take is on my own terms now. I don't need a metallic blue car to feel like I am winning. I just need the knowledge that I stood up for myself. Springfield is a big city, but it feels smaller now that I don't have to worry about running into him. He is too busy dealing with his lawyers and his court dates to bother me. I heard through Sarah that he is still trying to figure out who Alina Vance was. He thinks he was set up by a rival drug dealer or some disgruntled neighbor. He has no idea it was me. I prefer it that way. Let him wonder for the rest of his life who called the police that day. Let him look over his shoulder every time he sees a white truck or a middle-aged woman who looks like she might be a property manager. The best kind of revenge is the kind that leaves the other person guessing. I am 32 years old, I am a survivor, and I am finally the hero of my own story instead of the victim in someone else's. This is the reality of life in the United States of America when you decide to take control of your destiny. It is not always pretty, and it is not always easy, but it is definitely worth it in the end. I am Lena, and I am finally free. I remember the smell of the air that first morning I woke up in my new apartment, knowing Jason was likely sitting in a cell waiting for his preliminary hearing. It smelled like laundry detergent and potential. I spent that Saturday morning drinking coffee and looking out the window at the busy streets of Springfield. I saw a car go by that looked just like my old Camry, and for the first time I didn't feel a pang of sadness. I just felt a sense of closure. The metallic blue paint shimmered in the light, but it didn't belong to me anymore, and that was okay. I had something better than a car. I had my dignity. I had shown Jason that I was not a person who could be discarded and robbed without a fight. I think about the many people who get out of the community corrections facility and feel like they have nothing. They feel like the world is against them and that they have no power. I want my story to be a reminder that you always have power, as long as you are willing to use your head. I didn't have to use violence, and I didn't have to break any laws myself. I simply provided the police with the truth about what Jason was doing, and his own actions did the rest. It is a poetic kind of justice when a person is taken down by their own vices. I am now working toward getting my driver's license fully reinstated and clearing up the rest of my legal hurdles. I attend my meetings, I stay away from people like Jason, and I focus on my career. My boss at the shipping company actually gave me my job back after I explained the situation, which was a huge blessing. They value my hard work and were willing to overlook my past mistakes because I was honest with them. Life is not perfect, but it is mine. Every time I pass that police station downtown, I give a little nod of thanks to the officers who did their job that day. They thought they were just responding to a concerned citizen's call, but they were actually helping a woman reclaim her life. I don't know what happened to Jason's new girlfriend, and I don't care. I hope she realizes who he is before he does to her what he did to me, but that isn't my burden to carry anymore. I am moving forward, one day at a time, and I am never looking back. The streets of Springfield, Missouri, are wide and full of opportunities, and I am ready to take every single one of them. I learned that the most important thing you can own is not a car or a house, but your own peace of mind. Jason tried to steal that from me, but he failed. In the end, he was the one who was truly stuck, while I was the one who found my way out. It is funny how things work out in the end. You think you are losing everything, but you are actually just clearing out the trash to make room for something better. And that is the most authentic truth I can share with anyone who is going through a hard time. Keep your head up, stay smart, and never let someone else define your worth. You are the only one who can decide how your story ends, and I decided mine was going to end with a win. I am Lena, and this is my victory. I am now 32 years old and more successful than ever before. The lessons I learned during those 6 months in the facility and the weeks following my release have stayed with me. I am more cautious now, more aware of the red flags in people. I don't rush into things, and I certainly don't hide in trunks anymore. I walk through the front door, I look people in the eye, and I hold my head high. The Springfield Police Department and the county court system did exactly what they were supposed to do, and I am grateful for that. Justice is not always a straight line, but if you wait long enough and play your cards right, it usually finds its way to the right person. My metallic blue Toyota Camry might be gone, but the fire it lit under me is still burning bright. I am a woman of my word, and I am a woman who knows how to take care of herself. That is the ultimate revenge, to thrive when someone expected you to fail, to be happy when someone tried to destroy your peace, to be free when someone tried to keep you down. That is my story, and I am sticking to it. I have rewritten my future, and it looks a lot better than the past I left behind. I am Lena, and I am finally home. The sober living facility was just a stepping stone, and now I am standing on solid ground. I am looking forward to the next 32 years of my life, knowing that I can handle whatever comes my way. I have the strength of someone who has been through the fire and came out as gold. And that is something that Jason or anyone else can never take away from me. I am Lena, and I am powerful. I am Lena, and I am finished with the drama. I am Lena, and I am living my best life in Springfield, Missouri, United States of America. Every time I see a metallic blue car on the road, I think about how far I have come. It is a long way from the trunk of a car to where I am sitting now, and I am proud of every mile I have traveled. My story is one of resilience, and I hope it inspires others to never give up, no matter how low they feel. You can always turn the tables if you are brave enough to try. And that is the end of my story.